Kia ora mai tātou, e wakarongo mai nei ki tō tātou waanga nei, ko te rongomau. Kua tai mai mātou nā aunties ki konei, i te pōnei, ki te kōrero-rero, ki te aki-aki, tēnei tō tātou kaupapa o te rongoā. Nō reira, i runga i te kaupapa nei, tēnā koutou, a tēnā koutou, a tēnā tātou katoa, anei tā mātou karakia. Tui a i runga, tui a i raro, tui a te ere tangata i a nuku ārangi. Kia ora ia te kura, e kura nui, e kura roa, e kura takatū mai i a rongo taketake. Ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao, tau mai te mauri. Ka eke i o mai te rongo mai wenua, wakatupu ānuku, wakatupu ārangi, wakatupu ki te tini orongo. Kia ua na wakatupuranga, e rau pā no rongo, e rau i no rongo. Ka waka eke te aukai kia tīna, ka waka eke te aukai kia uru ora, kia tau mai te rongo mau, aumie, uie, tai ki e. Kia ora mai tātou. What another amazing week we've all had, I'm sure, and as we gather here tonight, I'm sure we're going to share some of those experiences that have come through this week. For some of us, it might be our first week back at work, back into our new normal. For others, we might be still at home without wānau, particularly out wānau in Tāmaki Makaurau. We mihi atu kia koutou katoa. And so as we enter into tonight's little show, I just wanted to put that little shout out to everyone. This week's a really special week, being Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, and it's part of a wider month of Māuru Māori. So I'm sure you've all been keeping up to date with all of the different kinds of activities that are going on in everyone's communities around te hāpai o te reo rangatira tō tātou reo Māori, engari, kia mātou no Taranaki, ko te reo o Taranaki. So I just wanted to put that shout up, and we'll probably go and have a wee conversation about that a bit later in the show. So if you're settling down and you've poured yourself your weekly cup of rongoā tea, te rākau, this is kind of what's coming up in tonight's show. We've certainly decided we're going to start tonight with our mihi round, sharing our rongoā of the week. So as you know, we feel into this space, and we are often guided to the kind of tea that we needed for the night, or for the day, or for the week. And so our whānau here, the panelists this week, are going to share with you their various little brews, which I think is always a good way to start. I'm going to move into looking at the Maramataka this week, because I think, again, it's really important for us to start to get into a new flow, given its koanga. It moved into spring, and we've had the spring king tides that came last week. I saw my cousin Titi Kura all up on the whenua and watching the different tidal movements around Taranaki. And so post that, it gives us a really good sign that koanga is here, and that we're needing to start to think about what's coming over koanga and raumati. So going to have a little bit of a Maramataka read, and then we're going to dive straight into our kaupapa kōrero, which is going to be amazing. Really looking forward to it, because Shell's going to share some gems tonight. And the kaupapa kōrero is ko koe te rongoā, ko te rongoā ko koe. So you are the medicine, and the medicine is you. So that's our kaupapa ake tonight, and we're going to have a little bit of a panel kōrero, as we normally do, around this particular kaupapa, and we want you to be thinking about how that also applies in your own whānau context, and in your own whānau whare, in your marae, at your apu, your iwi. So we want you to kind of think about what's been shared tonight, and those rongoā moments for you. If you're going to stick around for the whole show, there is but wait, there's more. And we've got a kōnai aroha that we want to talk a little bit about, a little bit of an offering. Ko a atu, ko a mai, at the end of the show. So it's an opportunity for you to share in the love, and we'll announce that at the end of the show. So stick around if you want to know what te kōnai aroha is, and we'll share that with you at the end of the show. So it's another good one. We're hoping you're all settled in and ready to go, because that was enough kōrero for now. So kia ora mai tātou. Kahuri tēnei. So I'm going to turn to our whānau, and I want to mihi to Kahurangi, who wasn't. And Kahurangi is it's one of those kind of things which I think is really good, is that she's decided that she needs to take some time for herself and her well-being. And I think that's a really lovely kind of place to start, because often when we're making our rongoā, it's usually for someone else or other people. It's usually the way it works. But in this particular setting, when we're sharing our cup of tea kōrero, we've often felt into the mauri and the energy, and we've made a tea that's kind of personalised for us. So she's here with us, our Wairua, and in the mauri of the night. But I'm certainly going to now hand it over to Rochelle, because we're all going to introduce ourselves, and also te tirako, so the cup of tea that we've decided to make for the evening. So kei a koe, Rochelle.
Oh, kia ora mai tātou, ngā mihi aroha kia koutou. Ngā mihi nui, te kore mako Taranaki. Nau mai hara mai I tēnei pō ki te kaupapa o Rongoā, o ngā uri o Taranaki Rongoā Collective. Ko wai au, e mokopuna au o te ka ui maunga, ko Aotea te waka, ko ngā rauru, ko Ngāti Ruanui, ngā ruahine, rātou ko Ātehau Nui a Paparangi ngā iwi, ko Rangiwa Carter Phillips, rawa ko Parihau Nuku Oku Mātua Tūpuna, ko Olive Bullock tōku kuia, ko Rochelle tāku ingoa, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everyone, welcome tonight. To our little gathering. We are Ngā Uri o Taranaki, or Rongoā Collective, a group of wahine. Well, it started off as a group of wahine, but there's, men to come, that just share rongoā. We're not an organised group. We're not a trust. We're just wānau talking to each other, and sharing what we know. And each week we have a little bit of a different take. Now, this week, my tirako is a combination of the humble kawa and some lemon, just a bit of honey and lemon verbena. And while I've chosen that combination tonight is because, one, I'm a little bit run down, as Shah mentioned before. It's been the first week full on back at mahi, and it's been go all week. And so I've got some kawa to help give me some energy and to some vitalization and get the blood pumping. I've got some lemon and some honey for my throat, good natural antibiotics. And I've got some lemon verbena, which helps settle my tummy, because I get really nervous before coming on the show, like all the wahine do. And but a very good tip for hapu, for our wahine out there that are hapu, is lemon verbena is wonderful when you're hapu. And sometimes those early stages in the middle of pregnancy, you get morning sickness, or you get feeling really nauseous when you drink tea or coffee. And lemon verbena is a really good replacement, and it's a good natural antioxidant for you and your pepe. So that's my tirako tonight. So kia ora, Kerry.
Kia ora, Cheryl. Tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui kia koutou, ngā mihi aroha. Ko Kerry Takawingawa, and I'm coming to you from the coast in little old Opanaki. Lovely to be here as always. And tonight I'm actually drinking the wonderful go-to kawakawa. It helps me settle my nerves and keeps my puku in check because this makes me really nervous. But it's a wonderful rongoā for lots of things. It helps with your kidneys and it's really good for eczema as well. So it's got wonderful properties of healing our lovely kawakawa. So awesome to be here. Hope you enjoy that evening. Over to you, Ariana.
Kia ora koutou. Ko Aotearoa waka, ko ngā rauru ki tai, ko ngā te ronui, ko ngā ruihine oku iwi, ko rangitawi toku apu, ko waioturi toku marae, ko Ariana Hurunui-Neil, taku ingoa. Kia ora. Welcome back for those of you who have joined us in the past 2 weeks. Tonight's show should be really exciting. I'm looking forward to listening to the other wahine. And my tea is, I was meant to have matipo in it, but I realised I had none just before I was about to brew. So I've just got my little teapot here, and it's got lime and rosemary. So rosemary is really good, and lime together just to help any inflammation that might be in my body, and kick any germs that are in there. So rosemary and lemon. And lime, and it's delicious as well. So it's always nice to have a wairako that's delicious. So kia ora.
Kia ora no hoki koutou e wakarongo mai nei. Ai, e tika ana tēnei uri no Taranaki iwi. Mai i ori mo peko tai atu ki pare aka ara ko Ngāti Aupoto. Nō reira, tēnei mokopuna e mi I kau atu ki a koutou katoa. Okay, what did I get? Well, I've had a bit of when I transition out of COVID, like when I come from being in my noho home, I love it. I actually have a really good whānau time because it's time for me with my whānau. So that's what I make it that space. And so when I transition back out into my other mai, I've got to do it slowly because I'm very sensitive. And if I don't transition out of that well, then when I start to get back into my other workload, I can be a little bit unsettled. And so I just wanted to share that because that's what I learned from the last time. Made all these promises to myself that my calendar would slow down. I wasn't going to fill up my calendar and I was going to take time out for me. Well, that was all a load of teka. And it didn't transpire. So I've decided to make sure that happens this time round. And so I don't do too much anymore. And because I also follow the Maramataka. So this week, there has been some pretty big emotional and wairua movement going on around me. And so my husband and I have picked up quite a bit of that, both through kōrero with whānau, but also in and around our whare. And so that often impacts my sleep, and it often impacts how I'm interacting, one in the daytime and then at night. So I have different kinds of peaks and troughs through the day and the night. So my tea making was about that because I have to keep my system balanced and tau. And so one of the rongoā that I use for that is koromiko. And I've got two kind of different kinds here at the moment. But I use koromiko to do that because what it does, like lemon verbena, it settles my puku. And so the way that I use that is, that's about how much I put in a pot of tea. And what it does, why it's great for your puku is because it helps inside this is the science of it. Now, our tupuna knew this, but they didn't explain it like this. So science has had to catch up with what our tupuna already knew. I'll just say that. So this was always a rongoā that was prescribed when we had upset puku, or we were nervous, or we had anything kind of going on with our bowels. Could be diarrhea, or you know, any susceptibility to gluten, or anything going on with our puku. This is the rongoā that we'd have. So what it does, it's really amazing. It actually helps your stomach, whatever you eat, whatever you're digesting, to then go through the gut lining and go through into your system easier. That's kind of the properties of it. I didn't know that. That's the science telling me that. But we were taking this through the last COVID, so we told all of our whānau who we look after and support to get themselves some koromiko, because that was the first immunity booster rongoā that we were telling people to go and look for. A lot of our whānau already know these rongoā, but that was the first one. So we ask our whānau to diet on it, which doesn't mean you only have that, nothing else. It's not that kind of diet. It means that they have this as a inu for at least a week, and we monitor it. And so, yeah, we do this alongside whānau so that they can learn this. So that's why I've taken it, because my puku, again, it wasn't churning through nervousness tonight. It was because of the difference in the load of the work, because it's workload that kind of changes the stress levels for me, and that changes the efficiency of my puku to process kai. So I've had that. And then the other one that I was led to harvest today was tarata. Now, I don't use tarata a lot. I use it a lot to smell and to do and rub on my hands and do all of those kinds of things, but I don't usually put it in a tea. But why I was drawn to it was because I sat with it and said, okay, why am I being drawn to you today? And it was around, here's the word, the wairua activity that's been going on. So some people might call it psychic activity. But I know when I can feel it. So I know where I feel it in my body. I feel it in my head. I feel it around my body, and it kind of can load. And so I needed that. I needed tarata in my tea tonight to help me to release the loading in my body. So that's quite in depth, right? But we're all kind of on the same kaupapa. What you need to know is one, these were for me, and I know everybody's done it here. It's traditionally harvested, so we pick it at the right time of the day. We've had karakia, we pick it at the right time of the day. It's not raining, because I don't harvest in the rain. That's how I was taught. And I only take enough for what the purpose of it is. So I'm very clear about the purpose and the intention before I touch anything. And then in the making of it, I again have to be in the right space and to activate the modi of that particular tea. So just to let you know, it's not just grab any old branch off a tree and then kind of think about, that later. You have to be intentional, because there's real integrity that goes with this rongoā. So that's the sharing that I have for tonight. Because one more note, contraindications. So sometimes, and it's not our rongoā that's wrong, sometimes we're on Pākehā medicine, and I'm not telling you to come off it, I'm saying stay on it, because you're being managed by your doctor, obviously. But sometimes the medications we're on, our rongoā doesn't like it. And so they don't always work well together. Not always, okay? So it depends on what it is. So for our whānau that are on kawakawa, having a cup isn't going to kill you over. However, being on it to heal yourself, if you're on blood thinning medication, you don't take kawakawa, okay? So that's why you need a practitioner, or somebody who knows what they're talking about, to support you when you're learning about these at the front end. because they are there to support you to learn about it, to learn how your body responds to it, because your whakapapa is different from mine. And then we do that gently and supportively together. So we're just having a cup of tea, just saying, but that's because we know what we're doing. And so just for whānau trying to coming into this journey of rongoā early, and this is maybe new to you, just wanted to kind of put that safety net around you so that you're aware of those kinds of things that we think about when we're working this ma'i. Ka pai, anything to comment on that? Anyone of you three? Before I move on. Kia koutou? No? Okay, just checked. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit of a read. So have a drink. I think we better have a drink. I need a drink. Hang on. We're gonna move on to the next segment, which is we wanted to kind of have this Maramataka conversation. So Tipene, thank you, e koe, is going to pop up a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation there, just so that you can kind of see that, again, we don't just kind of make these things up. These have come from heke iho. And so for me, there's a real depth of understanding. So we're moving into Maramataka, a depth of understanding that comes when we're kaitiaki of these taonga. And so one of the things I want to talk about Maramataka, for those that might not know what it is, or they might have started this journey, for those that are doing this all the time, ka pai, awesome, haere tonu. But I just wanted to say what it is. So Maramataka is all about our traditional lunar system. So it's a night-based system. In the Gregorian calendar, like today's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, that's the non-Māori system. It's based on a Gregorian system, and it's a solar calendar, so it's a sun calendar. Our tupuna used the moon. So I just needed to say that was the difference in the system. So it's going to be different. And they didn't just translate the days. What they did is every day had a different name and a different āuatanga or energy to it. And so it matched the kind of activities that were best done on those days. And so the read really comes from looking at the moon. So last night, I'm lucky, it was clear here. So I went out to have a look because we're heading into a full moon cycle. So it's starting, the sky at night is starting to get really bright. So it was a dynamic system, because even though there's a kind of a standard definition around the day, what happens on the day and the day itself is very dynamic, and you go with the flow of that day. So it was specific to wānau and apu. So this is what I love about it. It was specific to wānau and apu. So no one was the same. So, you could be living just around the corner from your cousins, and they might be on the same Maramataka, but their activities could be quite different. Or they might be reading a different Maramataka because they have a different whakapapa to it, but doing different things. And kei te pai tērā. So this isn't about going, oh, your Maramataka is not as good as my Maramataka. Ego doesn't exist. It's all about, I love it because it's wānau knowledge and apu knowledge. And that's what I love about it. And I've learnt this over time. It assisted our tupuna to plan ahead. And we all like that, don't we? I like it. To have some predictability about times ahead. So when we're in this thing we're moving through, this COVID space, predictability is probably one of the things that people feel the most helpless about. But I found Maramataka provides a predictability that helps me to kind of feel settled about the future. And so it puts me back into the now, and it also kind of enables me to look ahead and go, oh, sheiks, yeah, Rako Nui's coming up. Awesome. Because I'm a real kind of can't go to sleep person during Rako Nui. So I look kind of forward to that, but I also can plan around it. So I make sure I'm not doing too much at the end of the day, because I know I'm going to be up all night. So it's that kind of predictability. It helps you to read, to have a reading, okay, what's coming up or what's been, and then to be able to respond to your daily lives. So that's what our tupuna were doing in Te Taiao. And so it was the system of Te Whānau Marama, the light, the family of light, they call it. That's the whakapapa it comes down through, that they utilised. Now, there was a place for the sun, for the movement of the sun. And so we've moved into koanga, and I talked about that at the beginning. So there is a place for the sun, and the sun talks about the relationship between Hine Takurua, the atua of winter. She's amazing, and she's kind of located out. The kōrero talks about her being located in the sea, in that domain. And then there's Hine Raumati, who's the atua of spring and summer. She's amazing too. I love her too. And what happens with those two atua is that Tamanui Te Rā, the sun, moves between them. And that's kind of what happens. That's how the sun features in our pūkōrero and our traditional stories. And that actually dictates the seasons. So lunar calendar Maramataka does day to day. The sun's movement between Hine Takurua and Hine Raumati talks about the seasons. So, you know, mean kōrero. This is really beautiful kōrero because it puts us in the flow of now. So ka pai, that's kind of what the daily activities were about. So, you know, our tupuna went out fishing, eeling, diving, they went hunting and all of that as well, of course. But they did these kinds of activities, plus gardening, planting, harvesting, saving their seeds. They did their marakai ma'i according to the Maramataka. Ka pai? So hopefully that was helpful for those starting out. I just wanted to go to the next page on the PowerPoint just to say there's two kind of cycles that happen. So we're heading into the full moon phase. Rākau nui, rākau mātoi, takirau. And so once it hits rākau nui, or it hits full moon, you'll see it up in the sky, it's at its full capacity. So what happens is, it's called marama roroku because from that moment on when it hits rākau nui, the moon is actually moving in a downward cycle. It's shrinking. So it's at its fullest, and then it starts to shrink. And it comes down to, actually moves like this, but it comes down to Maramaua, to Wero, to the new moon phase, and then it starts to grow again. So it shrinks and grows. That's all you got to kind of think about. And energy increases or diminishes. That's the difference with that cycle of the moon. And because we know the moon pulls water up or it pushes water down, it kind of goes like that. We're so susceptible to the moon because we are, 75% plus water. So that's why we've got a relationship with her. So that's koina te kōrero. So think about that as well. Is your energy rising or is it falling? Next slide, please. Okay, last kind of kōrero. So there are different takes on what day we're at, and I thought this was more exciting than saying what day we're at, is that these are at least four different Maramataka that are around, quite publicly around, that tell us that it's 4 different days, and none of them are wrong. Isn't that cool? None of them are wrong. So on my Otaki Maramataka, which is a 30-day Maramataka, which comes from here, and it connects to our cousins in Ngāpuhi, we're on hotu, and so that relates to our tupuna hotu roa. It's got all those kinds of connotations to it, about being leaderful, about being aspirational, about the movement of the energy heading in its upward cycle, to look beyond the horizon. And then on the Tiatewa one is Mātwaru. So there's some really cool things launching today on Mātwaru, and the same thing, aspirational thinking. Start to plan ahead now. Start to think aspirational thinking. Ngā Rauru, that Maramataka is on Oʻua. Here, what are all the kind of different things that you want to fruit, that what you want to have come forward from this period, o ua. And then mauri, which is ngā pu'i, their Maramataka is all about the mauri, all about the energy. So I thought it's really kind of cool because they all link, even though they're different. And it's a really cool system to know. So here's the read ahead. Next slide, please, Tipini. The read ahead is, for me, this is my Maramataka that I read from. It's Māwaru Atua Oua. Those are the next 3 days. And they're about reflection. So I need to look back, what's happened. I need to prepare. I need to kind of put some things in place, do my planning, and then pace myself. Because atua right in the middle of that is a time to kind of just chill a bit. Don't go off the radar. Don't go off the Richter scale. Just pace yourself. So that's the neat thing about Maramataka, is it teaches you how to pace. And then we've got Turu, which is really starting to get up to Rākau Nui. It's the front end of our full moon phase. Rākau Nui. And sometimes if you're in a whare of o tāne or waine, or mostly, your household can be kind of acting the same. So just be aware of that to ensure that you understand that whatever's going on for you is probably going on for others. And so you've got to kind of temper it. So if you've got, a household that gets really off the planet through Rākau Nui, then find some activities that's going to tow the mauri. Or if it's the opposite and people lose the plot through this period, then again, find some activities where they can be restful, where they can reflect, and when they can best use their energy. It might be out in the mara. It might be going out, doing some outdoor things. Kei a koe te tikanga. Ka pai? So that was kind of a big lesson. Didn't mean it to be, but it ended up being one, because it kind of sets us up in terms of rongoā. So what I'd like to say is, we've all got different rongoā. We've all got different knowledge bases. We've all got different kinds of understandings of this kaupapa of rongoā, and Maramataka is one of those. Nera Shell. Kei a koe e te tuaine. Ko tō mātou kaupapa ko te rongoā. A koe ko te rongoā, ko te
Sorry,
rongoā
just getting used to these buttons of on and off business. Kia ora, Shah. Yeah, definitely feeling that energy pull coming into Rākau Nui. Like you, I haven't been able to sleep very much this week at all. Lots and lots of activity. So it was kind of a good week to go back to full on work. But getting back to the take of tonight, so every night we decide on a kaupapa to share with you, and based on the energies and frequencies of the Maramataka. And Shah alluded to that being aspirations and planning and aspirational thinking. And for me, there's nothing more aspirational than my kaumātua. So for me, personally, they're my rongoā. And growing up, being brought up with my nannies and koros, they were always who I went to. If I fell over, it was to always one of the nannies or the koros. They shared their love and their aroha with me. And, those are the ones that told me off too, and so this was a pattern that was recreated throughout my whole life of going to our elders. So for me, aspirational thoughts are always about them and the things that they taught me. So we're going to talk to the other ladies. We're going to talk to Ariana and Kerry about some attributes within their own wānau and themselves that they find brings rongo to them. So it goes back to this kōrero that I learned and I shared with the ladies last week. We always have a bit of a catch up after the show. And when I was young, I was really lucky, and I was given the opportunity to be a kaiawhina or kaimai / slave to Nanny Olive Bullock, and also Uncle Sonny Kawaka Stevens of Takido, and Uncle Nico Tangaro. And they were invited, as a group of elders, were invited over to Canada and to visit the Cree Nation there. And anyway, so I was the bag carrier and the organizer and all of that, and made sure that they didn't get lost or stolen, you know, because I tell you, lots of people wanted to steal our nannies and korals, you know, because these cute little, they were just gorgeous. And, you know, they're just beaming with aroha, you know, beaming with just the most beautiful modi. And everywhere we went, people would want to steal them. So, you know, I was a bit of a gatekeeper as well. But when we arrived in Alberta for the first time, when we came through the doorway through customs, we were greeted by the First Nations Cree elders, and they greeted us with their singing and their drums. And it was a very emotional experience, and we were all really overcome and honoured, and you couldn't help but cry. I mean, it was just incredible. And that was that wakarongo, to engaging the senses. And even though I was in my 20s then, I spiritually, I didn't really intellectually, you know, like my hirinaro didn't really understand what was going on. And I wasn't really mature enough to understand the meaning and the depths of that. I didn't really understand about colonization then. I didn't really understand about the intergenerational impacts of things then. I didn't really understand that. So, but my wairua understood it. So when the elders were singing their songs and greeting us, and their humility and their humbleness, reaching out to my kaumatua, that affected my wairua. And I was changed, I believe, really from that day. When they took us into their house and to their whare, they share sacred circle, they share sacred space. We all sit in a circle, and we had the sacred sage and the tobacco ceremony, and they honour their Mother Earth, Sky Father, like we do, their ancestors, and the Creator, and they end their karakia with all relations, because we're all interconnected. And one of the things that they said to us was they thanked the Māori people for bringing their medicine back to Turtle Island, because through the process of 500 years of colonization, they had lost a lot of their rongoā rākau. So they still had their ceremonial practices, which were outlawed, but a lot of their rongoā rākau, because they were put on reservations and moved off their whenua all over the place, over America, had been lost. So they were really grateful for that knowledge that had been passed on through us. And so it was then that I learnt the concept of what rongoā we have to share with others. And we may not realise that we hold rongoā, that we hold medicine. And the medicine that they were talking about was, you know, rongoā sovereignty and rangatiratanga, and being able to share and to relate to each other with empathy and respect. And so when we were talking about it last week, we just talked about, I think it would be a really good exercise for whānau out there and for you personally to think about the qualities that your whānau has that bring rongoā to other people and to other whānau, and contribute to their hapu and contribute to the iwi. And I looked at my whānau, and I think it is the storytelling and the sharing and the passing on of rongoā. And, you know, we're not all good at it. We're not all perfect at it. And we screw up and muck around and do all sorts of things, and we're not perfect. But it certainly isn't about being perfect, but it is about holding that that mauri in your nākau for the passion of passing that on. And that's our rongoā. Amongst other things. And individually in the whānau, you know, you've got your the ones that are good at gardening, and the ones that are good at mirimiri, and the ones that are good at talking, and the ones that are good at all different things. So within our whānau and our hapu, we have all these different rongoā. but a lot of time a certain whānau carries a vibration, carries a whakapapa to a particular type of taonga. And I just think that we should celebrate that in this week, and reflect while the energy is high, and just, feel good about ourselves and our whānau, and, bring back that medicine, because feeling good about ourselves as Māori is medicine. So I'm going to ask you, Kerry, your experiences with your whānau, indirectly or accidentally, or how it came about, the medicine that your whānau holds for your hapu and iwi. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Shell. Thanks for sharing your story with us. The rongoā that my whānau practice or offer to others is manaakitanga, and it's something that I'm really proud of. We hear the karanga from Nana. We got the karanga from Nana to go and prepare the marae for whānau when they needed us. And so as a whānau, we all took the time to stop what we were doing and to go up to the marae and prepare it. While we were there, we were able to awhi the whānau that needed us at their time of grief. And it's something that we've always done, even now that Nana's passed on. Auntie Joan sends out the karanga, and it's my generation now that are responding to her, and it's just something that we've always done. We've always been out the back. None of us have really had that desire to be at the front. We are at our best when we're at the back, doing the mahi, and although it can be a sad time, there are beautiful, uplifting moments that come for that, and to be able to comfort a whānau or anybody in their time of need uplifts your mauri. So sadly, over the last 4 years, we haven't been able to be at the marae, but we've been able to still send that manaki to whānau in their homes, or some of our own whānau have opened up their own homes for that. And hopefully when Oramapiko reopens, we'll be able to go back to the marae and continue what our nannies and our whānau had started, or our tupuna had started, and we continue doing that. Within the whānau, although we manaaki others, within our whānau I've got some cousins that have a really strong faith, and their karakia are just simply beautiful. And we have other whānau that have different strengths and that they share, and it uplifts our own whānau as well. So we've got this whānau page that we share, and just the kōrero from this journey that us wahine have started on rongoā has just started the kōrero within my own whānau. And it's just been amazing how different stories are coming up about what Nana taught this one and what Nana taught that one, and just having that kōrero with the cousins about it is just it's just been awesome. So that's what my whānau do to practice the rongoā. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Kerry. That's so beautiful to have a whānau that can awhi others like that. So thank you for sharing. This when we spoke about going to talk about our rongoā and our whānau this week, I really had to sit and reflect because there's so many different elements within our whānau that collectively brings whānau. And I thought, everybody has something in their own whānau that they bring. We have beautiful tāne in our whānau who support us. There are a lot of wahine in both sides of my whānau who are very strong wahine. And we have beautiful men to balance that. But upon reflecting, I looked to my parents, and throughout my life, karakia has been a stronghold for us to turn to. So that, how can I share this? I think, big silence. I think with being Māori, as many of us know, and we have a connection, and that wairuatanga, that connection to other people, and to our environment, and then there's that beyond that we also connect to. And when we have that relationship where we connect beyond, karakia is a huge foundation that we need in order to protect us. And so that's where karakia has been. It's been a foundation in my life. Also being a Catholic girl, so there were a lot of karakia every morning, every night. And it brings a lot of power and a lot of healing to my whānau. And even my tamariki, so I've got some teenagers, and one was off hunting this weekend, and he does his karakia before he goes hunting, and we do one before he leaves home. So we have a karakia pretty much every day, and if they forget, I've got them. But yeah, there's so much power in our karakia that our tupuna have handed down to us, and within that power is connection, is healing, is protection. So I'm really thankful to my parents, to their parents, and my tupuna for handing that knowledge and that power of karakia down. So that's our rongoā and our whānau that I'm very grateful for. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Before Shah does her gorgeous, beautiful rounding off as she does and pulling all the puti out of the kōrero, I just wanted to acknowledge what you were saying, Ari and Kerry, because that's what rongoā is about, is bringing out the beautiful mātauranga and tikanga and kawa of our hapu and our people. And often when you're slaving in the kitchen, there's one of our chiefs, Tūrama, Hawera, he taught me the concept of the pai, and I always thought the pai was just, it was only pai anake was only where the kuia sat and the koro sat, where they did their waikōrero and their beautiful waiata and karakia, and we did pōwhiri. I thought that was the pai. That was my vision of the pai. Until we were on the awa and Tūrama explained to us that everyone holds a pai, and that there was the pai in the kitchen, and there was the pai in the waripaku, and there was the pai outside. There was the kai gatherers, there was the weavers, that everyone holds a pai. And though that was another aspect of looking at the pai matua and our tikanga and bringing rongo into our whānau. And I think over the years there's been so much negativity about things that have happened in Te Ao Māori, and I think it's about time that we really celebrate those pai again. And that's just acknowledging, and I know acknowledging your whānau, Kerry, and holding the pai of being in the kitchen, and Ariana and the karakia, because when there is an absence of karakia and an absence of the whānau in the kitchen, you really feel it. You know, so sometimes people can do that rote karakia, you know, e te atua, wakabai, you know, you hear that. But when it's not there, and it's not done with the aroha and the intent, you really do feel it. So I just want to acknowledge your whānau, Wahine Ma, for that kōrero. And Shah will round off and do what she does. Kia ora, Shah.
Kia ora, Shell.
I've loved sitting on this pai listening to the kōrero, because I think what I'm hearing is exactly the sentiments that I know a lot of rongoā whānau are wanting to share at the moment, because I think we have to peel it right back to the basics, rongoā at its basics, and that's kind of what we wanted to share tonight. So when we're sitting amongst our other rongoā whānau who do this ma'i, you know, we can get a little bit frustrated with it being captured by a system, saying that it sits within a health system, that it sits, you know, in certain silos. That's the word I want to call it. Because in those silos, they don't belong to us. They are kawana developed kind of silos. They've tried to capture what rongoā is. And I think one of the challenges to us as whānau is to reclaim what actually is already ours, and to give it words and meaning and stories that relate to us, to revitalize it again for our mokopuna to come, because it actually sits with us. We're kaitiaki of this. And so unless we're willing to kind of pick it up and have these conversations and to really look at it at its depth, beyond the smoke and mirrors of a system that tells us how to live and how to be, we're going to continue to go round on the merry-go-round. So what I'm hearing is we're jumping off it for a bit. And then we get to choose whether or not we interact in that space or not. So I'm just wanting to, because Rochelle gave an amazing summary, so I don't need to be putting any summaries in there. It was all good. But just to think of it in another way, because this is about, you know, having also ensuring that our whānau who are doing the ma'i, so those that are working in the helping services and the health services, all of our whānau, because you're all our whānau, that you think about this space, because this is truly whānau-led, whānau-centred ma'i. It's where the heart of this ma'i is. And so if we're really, truly going to honour this space, then that's where it's got to go back to. It's got to go back to our whānau, back to our apu, back to our pā, where the origins of this still remain today. So I love that kōrero whānau. I think it's really perfect for us to be, you know, thinking about at the moment. And I think about that kōrero he pūkenga atu, he pūkenga tō ia rongo. So it talks about there are some skills, knowledge and experience that comes from tū mātauinga, and there's some skills, knowledge and experience that comes from rongo. And at different times, we're going to need to front up on the line and you know, challenge, like tū mātauinga does. Got to go to the line, because we can no longer be silenced about these things. And then there's going to be other times when we just go back to ourselves and back into the space of rongo and just do the ma'i of rongo, which is about approaching it in a natural way, and a way that comes naturally for us and for whānau. So he kōrero iti tērā, and it kind of embellishes this whole conversation about, this is the time to start to think about our aspirations. This is the time to start to have conversations about what we dream to be different, what we dare to put out there that might be different from what we're accepting right now. And so it's a perfect time for this marama, this particular moon night, to be laying that kind of aspirational kōrero and those seeds of hope, of potential, which is the space of rongo. So he mea pai wa ine mā, pai te kōrero. Are we wanting to have a little wee paku kōrero about the fact that this is Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori? Do we want to have that very kind of a brief little round before we come to the end of our show? Because I think we decided from last week we'd kind of try and keep to our time frame. But we did want to acknowledge that, you know, these are deep conversations, but they're not ours to be had, they're yours, all of those that are listening. So to take what we've kind of offered and then to go and develop and have these conversations again with your own whānau. And we're really keen to know, you know, we've got some feedback we want to do at the end of the show. That's the ko'a. Stick around for the ko'a, for the kōnai ko'a. But yeah, just we wanted to touch on the fact that it's Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, and maybe just a little quick round from our panelists to touch on this kaupapa, because we know Te Reo's a lifelong journey, so we certainly know that it's not going to be solved in a week. But just to kind of share any sentiment you might want to share, a learning you might have had, or a thought, to share a thought about Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, or where Te Reo Māori sits with you here and into the future, because we're talking about aspirations, eh? So I'm going to start with you. Who was it? Kerry, I'm going to go to you first, ka pai, and we'll come around to Ari and then to Rochelle.
Kia ora. I guess the similar story to many others was that, you know, my nanny was not allowed to speak the reo, and so none of her children were taught it either. So we're reo poor, and I think that's probably why we do manaki out the back. However, for me, my journey, I'm working at the kura at Opanaki, at Te Kura Tuaru o Opanaki, and really, really lucky to have mātua there to help. He's my go-to if I want to know what something means or how to say something, and I'm just really starting my journey. So, you know, Kazi Robbie's there too, just to help on that journey. She's taking classes at the kohanga or at the kura. So yeah, just I kind of don't really feel like I'm Māori because I can't speak the reo, and so sometimes I shy away a little bit. But now I know that that's really doesn't serve me any purpose. So you know, need to get some kaha there and just do it. So yeah, that's me. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Te reo. So I'm very new, I suppose, when it comes to learning Māori. I think there was a little bit of a stigma around it from high school, that if I got something wrong, that I would then be embarrassed or I would be shamed out because I may not say it in the correct order because it's completely different to the order in how we speak English. So for years, I kind of just put a wall up against it, and that was just something I wasn't going to learn, and I was all right going about my day. But now on my journey, I found out a really cool thing. So my koko Turi brought in, he was fluent in te reo, and he could speak a large number of dialects from around Aotearoa, and he would know where you're from just by how you would kōrero Māori. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Sadly, he passed when I was young, so I didn't get a chance to spend more time with him. But yeah, I thought that was really beautiful. And today, I'm in a world. So my rongoā for this year has been a rāranga. And just from the crazy year that we all had last year, I needed a space out from mahi and from home, and rāranga has really provided that for me. And it's really encouraging I work at Tuiora, and we have Tare who takes te reo there, and Kere who encourages us to make mistakes and to try and that we're all here as whānau, and it's a safe space, where I've built the courage to say karakia, and if I get it wrong, well, only a few of them will know. No, but yeah, it's really beautiful to be in a space where it's okay to make mistakes, and it really motivates me to try more, because I would always be messaging my uncle, and I'd be like, "Uncle, what's this? What does this mean?" Oh, and and it'll be like Pānui on our Waioturi site, and he's like, "Oh no, my girl, that's not for you. That's for the kaumātua." And I was like, "Oh, okay, goodbye," because I try to go to all the wānanga. But yeah, this year's been a huge, for me, a huge movement, sitting in a lot of wānanga where our Taranaki dialect and Taranaki reo's been spoken, and I go home after 2-3 days with like the sorest of heads, but my wairua just feels so fulfilled, and it's just the sense of like I'm a little part of that. So kia ora to everyone who shared with me on this journey, and I just encourage you to make mistakes and try, because it is a safe space and we're all going to be on this track together learning. So kia ora.
Oh, kia ora, I'm right there with you. Yeah, so I've got this like snakes and ladders relationship with Te Reo. Like, so, my nannies, Olive and Nanny Sue and Nanny Connie and Okaiawa and Ohawi. Nanny Connie was a native speaker, Koro Roko Broughton went to her about the mita of, Ruanui, and she never spoke English because she was raised by her kaumātua. So when they died, when she was in her teens, she never went to school. And she had this trauma about feeling that she wasn't intelligent enough. And I remember when she told me that kōrero at Nanny Pat's tangi when we went over to Hastings, or Tāne, I couldn't believe that this majestic, beautiful kuia, I mean, she was on that show Kuia, where they celebrated kuia over 90, was sitting there feeling shame about her intelligence and her reo, and it was heartbreaking. It was really, really heartbreaking. And my nannies, they would sit around and they would kōrero with each other, and they would laugh, and they would kōrero and they'd laugh, and they'd tell dirty jokes, and it was all that stuff. But they never directly spoke to us in Māori. It was weird. And the funny thing is, can I just tell you this? When I was growing up in the 70s, we didn't say Māori. It was Maori, those Maoris. And it was like, those Maoris are there doing that. And none of the Pākehās or at school, it wasn't Taranaki, it was Taranaki. So there was this real, I don't know, not conflict, but it just wasn't spoken the way it is now. And when I went to school, the only thing I learned, because it wasn't called kapahaka, it was called culture group. It was culture group, like it was something else, was, that song, that waita, one day a taniwha was swimming in the moana. That's the only Māori I knew at school. And then I left to go to Australia when I was 10 with my parents. And then I came back later on in life. And so when I came back to learn Māori with beautiful Nanny Ropo at Kaipō Marae in Waitōtara, I had this really thick Aussie twang as well. So it was really hard. I'm like the worst student ever. The worst student ever. I've had the best. I've had Ngāni Waitai, Tūrama, the Broughton's, Roka, Rodu, Te Rapa, and I'm a koretake when it comes to, when it comes to that. It takes me a really, really, really long time to learn structure. So I discovered that we're not all blessed in everything, but it is something that I am wanting to, I'm wanting to continue that journey. And I don't care how painful it is for me or my mokopuna listening to me. I want to take that journey. And like Ari, I just encourage anyone, don't be fearful. It's that fear is based in trauma, and it's not for us to carry. And yeah, go out there and shine.
Wow. I think it's a great thing to share our stories, because I think every single one of us has got a story. Okay, there's not one of us that escaped this. Okay, so that's all I want to say, is nobody escaped this. We've all got it, and that's the difference between whether it is way back in the 70s, because I'm that 70s child too, Rochelle. Grew up through those times where I was racially abused by other non-Māori children, my peers, my mates, and I'm not going to repeat that, but that's the stigma I picked up. That the only place for me to be myself was at wakarongotai, was at the marae, or when somebody passed away. And so in my social scene here as an urban child growing up, you had to kind of watch your P's and Q's. So you learned some things, some survival tactics in society, which over time, and I need to say 80s came along, Renaissance, revitalisation of te reo, establishment of ko'anga reo and kura kaupapa, all of those things started, and I missed that waka. So I had to do it in a different way. I went to te reo Māori classes with mum and dad. They were learning the rākau method, Taranaki, and I loved going there with them, because, that was the norm I wanted, but it was hard for them because they were pained. Because their parents, my grandparents, were fluent, were native speakers, and they made a choice for their children because of the horrific experience they had at school, at the native schools in Taranaki. So to say that this trauma doesn't exist now in this generation is not true, but we have each learnt a survival tactic and our own kind of strategies to move through the space. And so I think that's another reason why rongoā is important, because we are constantly seeing the way trauma arises in our whakapapa. And it's not until we're kind of confronted with some of these situations where this opportunity to heal that comes up. Okay, so I mean, I'm like the others. I've been in that space, traumatic feelings rising up, fear, panic, not able to think that I can get what's in my brain out of my mouth, out in front of my relations. The biggest fear that I'm going to fail in front of them, and what are they going to say? And it's horrible. It's a horrible thing to have to go through when it's your birthright. So I just think, at this time, I'm all in for Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, but I'm also all in for us having these real convos and having spaces where we can start to chip away at what actually sits there, because sometimes we don't even know it's there. My mum and dad they don't ever talk about this, but I can talk about it, so they can heal through my talking about it, because I've done a lot of work around it, and I've got a long ways to go. Don't go there. Got a long ways to go. But that's the kind of thing I think we need to, why rongoā is important, why it needs to be in all of our houses, why it needs to be in every wānau, because we're still getting through day to day with these kinds of real take that affect our whakapapa. So, wow, cool kōrero whānau. That was really, really neat. And I'm sure, hopefully, those that are listening, again, this is about putting some of our vulnerable spots up for identifying strategies through, and then to kind of just make real. And my rongoā mates call this rongoā in real time. Okay, that's what they call it. So my tour kind of talk about, rongoā has to happen in real time, in the now time, with the real stuff. and this is the real stuff. Ka pai tērā. Okay, so, all right. Now we're kind of at te kōnai aroa. Is that okay to kind of, this is our end of our segment, whānau. So we kind of thought, we're up here, you know, talking a lot. But we really want to know what you think, and we want some some feedback. And so while we've got these huge dreams for rongoā around the maunga and Taranaki, and it's going to take the whole nation to kind of make that happen, right? Every single one of us has to kind of join hands and make this happen. One of the things we thought about was that we don't really know what people want in terms of their aspirations or their dreams around rongoā. And those of us that are in the ma'i, we do get told this. But we want this to be inclusive of everybody around the maunga. And so if you've never had this conversation or you've never had this thought, that's who we want to hear from. So we're going to ask you, and there's a kind of a little hook here, we're going to ask you to answer an easy question for us, but we're hoping it's an easy question for you as well. And it's one that you're going to kind of feed into in the chats and the comments below. And the question is, what are your aspirations, your rongoā aspirations for Taranaki? So this is the question: what are your rongoā aspirations for Taranaki? And so we're going to ask you to comment in the thread and keep the comments going. It doesn't matter if you're only listening 2 days later, but we're going to kind of monitor the responses, and then we're going to draw out of the hat kind of a thing, because we're still old school, remember? We're hat drawers. A name of a whānau member, and we've put together a rongoā pack of all these lovely kind of offerings, these things that we've all kind of put together, of a kōnai full of rongoā for a lucky recipient. So I'm going to go back through the question and the process, because I think it's really important to be clear. So the question we would like you to answer down below is, what are your rongoā aspirations for Taranaki? And I need to say, this is for whānau in Taranaki, because the kōnai that we've put together is located in Taranaki, and we need to get it out to whānau living in Taranaki. So aroha mai to all of our awesome whānau outside of Taranaki. We love you, but this offering's for whānau in Taranaki. There'll be more to come, I'm sure. So if you want to answer the question anyway, do answer the question. But maybe if you're not from Taranaki, not living in Taranaki, in and around Taranaki, you might want to nominate a whānau member who you want to put up to receive this particular kōnai aroa, full of amazing things of rongoā offerings. So that's kind of the thing. And we're going to draw it on Wednesday so that we can then contact somebody by Friday for a bit of a pickup around the maunga somewhere. So this is kind of quite exciting for us. So answer the question, what are your rongoā aspirations for Taranaki? If you don't live in Taranaki, put somebody that you're nominating's name down. We will put all those feedbacks in a hat. We're going to draw it on Wednesday, and then we'll contact you to organise for the pickup at our location between one of us whānau members here. So that's our kōnai giveaway kind of a thing. We're hoping that everyone's going to kind of participate, because it would be really lovely to know what your aspirations are. Because, you know, we got to build this from the whānau up and out, and we don't have the answers. You got the answers. So this is a really, really lovely opportunity to offer something. So just to let you know, that's the end of our show. We're going to be back for another 2 Saturdays at least, and then we're going to kind of consider what that means beyond there. But we've got some really juicy kaupapa coming up over the next couple of weeks, so just letting you know. Looks like we don't have anything to do on a Saturday, but we do. And you know, we're here to support the whānau. Koina te mea nui. So I'm going to offer the time back to Ariana, because she's going to share with us te karakia whakamutunga for the evening. But yeah, to you all, we love you so much, and we hope that there's something in this kōrero that we've offered that's helpful and useful for you and your whānau. Nō reira, ki a koe, Ariana, kai a koe te wā.
Kia ora. So my karakia, I'm just going to give you a little translation of it, and then we'll go through, do a little whakawātea. So it's about releasing you from the restrictions that you may have gathered on your day, the difficulties of your day, your week, or any obligations that you may have been under. So this karakia is about releasing those and releasing your mind and your emotions so that they're luminous, that your physical being's then unburdened, and that your spiritual self is unimpeded. And so yeah. So I'm going to do, I introduced my whakawātea spray back in week 1. So I would do this karakia after a long day with my spray. So just get it going. Okay. Unihia wete wetea, ngā tamitanga o te wā, ngā kupengatanga o te wā, ngā herengatanga o te wā. Oh no, ngā herenga o te wā. Kia wātea te ngākau, kia wātea te tinana, kia wātea te wairua. Tomo kia e tāne te waiora, tāne te wakaputu nei. Ki te whaiau, ki te ao mārama, I rongoa kairia, ui e, tai ki e. Kia ora.
Pō Māori e whānau, tēnā koe.
Pō Māori e.
Ai.
Pō Māori e.
Pō Māori e.